Hey, Jess, you know what I love?
What's that?
I love gambling. And more than that, I love bonus bets.
It's funny you mentioned that, Adam, because right now we've teamed up with DraftKings, where if you go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, you bet $5 on any bet on the entire sportsbook, you get $150 of those bonus bets instantly. And all you got to do is use our promo code INSIDEFIGHT.
And what if sports betting isn't available in my state? Could I do their daily fantasy instead?
Absolutely not to worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in all the fun and have a shot to win cash prizes. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code INSIDEFIGHTING, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's bet $5 on any bet. Get $150 in bonus bets instantly with promo code INSIDEFIGHTING. Nate Diaz just punked N3on. That is not the way I thought I was going to be starting this episode, but that's just what happened literally like seconds ago. Welcome to the Fight Season Podcast. Me, Jesse Rowe, with Inside Fighting, joined by Adam Fishkin. What's up, Adam? How are you?
What's up, Jesse? And yeah, you love to see it, eh? When you get one of those new streamers who just gets put in their place. I saw him get chased out as well after. I'm sure we'll get into that, but yeah, hilarious stuff.
It's the second time we've started an episode where like something happened at a Nate Diaz press conference right before we recorded. So we have to squeeze it in somehow.
It's like he's doing us a favor. It's like he knows we're about to record. And he's like, let me give him content.
Free content, exactly. Free views. So Nate and Jorge, it was kind of a weird press conference. Who's the dude from Morning Combat? Brian Campbell was hosting it. And he was asking questions, and you could just tell like Jorge Masvidal is like dealing with a weight cut. So he was grumpy. He didn't want to answer any questions. So it was like a very standoffish, weird vibe to the press conference. And then out of nowhere, N3on, I see N3on just like gets a chance to ask a question for some reason. And I was like, this has Better Derek written all over it. You know, when Better Derek got on the microphone and asked Nate Diaz the same question, I was like, he basically just copied that dude. Because didn't Better Derek ask the same question about Jake Paul knocking him out? N3on gets on the microphone and says, when you get knocked out, you know, like, are you going to retire?
Hi, nice to meet you guys. This question's for Nate. When you do get knocked out, are you going to retire?
Who said that? So I know who you are. That little bitch boy, you fucking little pussy.
If you do. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to be watching. I'm excited to see both sides, but...
I'm going to kick you in your fucking leg, motherfucker. He said when you get knocked out. Hey, P.S., fuck you.
I have a lot of respect for everyone, man. It's just, I want to see a great fight.
Fuck you. It's little kids like this little bitch talking in this motherfucker that is like changing the times. Need your little ass whooped. I got little girls over here that'll fuck you up.
It's like... nothing original about it.
No, and then he like got all squeamish after, which I gotta give Derek more respect for, because I don't think he did. But as soon as kind of Nate was like, "Hey, fuck you," he was like, "Oh, I meant like if you get knocked out," you know?
Yeah, no, he got scared.
He just, like, took it all back right away. Yeah.
Yeah, Nate told him that like he's basically what's wrong with it. What did he say? He says like, you're like one of the kids. It's like a sign of the times, like a changing of the times or something like that. Basically saying like you're part of you're part of the problem with this new generation kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. He's like you're the like you are the problem with the new generation.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's clearly just like clout chasing and trying to get a reaction and get his little internet moment, because he was live streaming as he asked the question. And the funniest part is I didn't really see it, but our owner, Robbie Clark, sent a text message with a video of Nate Diaz's security, Big Richard is his name, who chased N3on out of the building. N3on's like screaming and the camera got all like blurred out and everything, but it was very refreshing to see that they weren't going to let that stand, and I'm guessing he's not going to mess with Nate again, but it was pretty great to see.
So funny. But yeah, I think they ended up getting into like a parking garage, and I think N3on got out fine, but it's like I get the point of chasing him, but at the same time, like, okay, you catch him. where are we
They're
going
not
from
going to do
here?
it.
Exactly.
They're
So,
just going to scare him. That's really all they were trying to do. Is just like, hey, yo, go
well, that's
scare
the
him.
thing.
Yeah.
N3on should have stood his ground. Easier said than done, but he would have gotten more respect from Nate's camp for not running away and
That's probably true.
screaming, I'm sorry. Yeah, they weren't gonna beat him up. It's
Yeah.
and N3on is like 5'10", maybe 140 pounds. Like
Soaking wet. Yeah.
yeah. Like they're not gonna beat you up. They know they know the consequences of that. They don't want that.
I just can't imagine I get credentialed at a press conference to like talk to like two legendary fighters, and the question I ask is about like, "Hey, are you gonna get knocked out?" I don't know. I just can't imagine that that's what my career would come to. But I'm from a different
Good.
generation, Adam. I'm clearly.
I can't believe
Yeah.
my
He's one of
press
your
pass for
guys.
UFC. Yeah. I can't believe my press pass for UFC 303 got denied, and then kids like this get access to the media. So it's pretty crazy.
It is. Well, let's say I'm sure he's learned his lesson. He won't do it again.
Yeah.
But there was another press conference yesterday that sort of came up out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it. The UFC just like randomly posted about it. Maybe they didn't want to press their luck by promoting it because of what happened to the UFC 303 press conference with Conor McGregor. So they didn't announce it until it was official, probably, and or until both fighters were actually in attendance. And then they put out they just randomly upload a premiere link that Izzy and Dricus du Plessis are going to face off and do a press conference. So I got a chance to watch it live, and it was pretty cool to see Israel Adesanya back. I know that he took a little bit of a break. He's been getting some hate from fans who feel like he doesn't deserve this title shot, which we've talked about before. But it was very cool to see Izzy back.
Yeah. No, I loved seeing Izzy back as well. I watched most of the presser. I thought it was a great presser as well.
It was great.
Yeah. There was definitely some highlight worthy moments in a sense that make for a good TikTok or Instagram reel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just even gained a little bit of respect for Dricus there, which for the same reason that what I was saying N3on should have done. Dricus stood his ground. He told him like exactly when he got called out for what he said in the past, he doubled down on it and he's like, yeah, and I still beat it, There wasn't any like, oh, I didn't say that, or like it was misunderstood or whatever. He just repeated it, and I thought it made for a great moment.
He tried to discredit the Three Kings and say that he's the real true African champion. And I was just like, it's a weird mindset, bro. Like, he came in the UFC. I knew who he was a little bit, but I didn't go, oh, who the fuck's this fake dude coming in? I just said, cool, there's another African in the UFC. But then him discrediting me, Francis Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, that ticked me off a little bit. So that's what started this. But again, I'll finish it.
And as far as discrediting, never discredited anybody. Stating facts. Where do I reside? What's my postal code? Where do I train? Where do I live? Where was I born? In South Africa. Still there, still training. And I won this belt from South Africa. I didn't travel anywhere else. That was the only thing that I stated. So never discredited anybody. But quite frankly, I don't really care about how it rubbed him off the wrong way. I don't care.
I don't really give a fuck where he's from, but I'll show him who he is.
Yeah, whatever that means. I'm glad you took up golf because, that's a retirement sport. I can understand you start playing golf.
Hey, man, you do what you have to do in your own time.
Yeah, he. So for people who don't know, it's obviously tied to the comments that DDP's made in the past about how he was going to be the first African champion who actually lives in Africa. Like, who's going to bring because he breathes African air, he trains in Africa, all that. And of course, race becomes an issue. We're not going to get into that, but Israel Adesanya took it personally. And that's why this fight's happening to begin with. Because back when Dricus made those statements, Izzy responded by beating Alewx Pereira. And then in the post-fight interview in the press conference, after winning the rematch against Pereira, he essentially refers to DDP, but not by name, and just says, "Oh, I really want to kick this guy's ass," who was talking about, my culture and things like that. So clearly there's real bad blood from Izzy's standpoint. Then Dricus beats Robert Whittaker. Izzy gets into the cage against DDP, and they face off, and they have a whole face off that's very racially charged. And that's where this is all stemming from. So DDP, he did stand his ground, but the funniest part about that whole exchange was that Izzy made a comment. He said, I'm not going to, I can't tell him, I don't care where he's from, but I'll show him who he is what Izzy said. And then DDP was like, whatever that means. I'm glad
Yeah,
you
I
jumped on
loved it.
golf because it's a retirement sport.
Yeah.
It was actually a really good comeback.
That was my highlight of the presser as well. I loved it. I think that was all part of the same exchange there.
It was.
But absolutely hilarious. I also really liked Izzy's perspective on, I think he was asked, like, hey, if you win, you will be the first to win the middleweight title 3 separate times. How do you feel about that? And Izzy basically said, like, look, I've already kind of cemented my status in this division. For me, it's not about the title. For me, it's just another head to collect, you know? And what he meant by that is he's beaten so many fighters. Dricus is not someone he's fought before. And for him, it would be like another tick, like, oh, I've beaten this guy as well. And I actually kind of like that. I think it's kind of like the Avengers and like collecting your stones, you know?
Yeah.
That's what he's doing there. And I think it's a neat perspective. And I kind of agree with him on it. So yeah, it was good stuff for sure.
I liked that he said it too, but I have to admit, like, I don't know if I totally believe him when he says it. Like, I think that, like, for Izzy specifically, I think Dricus as like a pelt on his wall, so to speak, it is a big deal for Izzy. I think that he really wants that one because he feels like Kamaru Usman and Francis Ngannou and him were disrespected. So he feels like a deep connection to just beating Dricus as like an important thing for him. But he cares about the belt. I mean, he wants to get it back. He wants to be champion. But maybe in this one particular case and beating Alewx Pereira, that those two things were more important than the belt.
Yeah.
But it was also good to see Steve Erceg back, after 301. So I did want to talk about that briefly, but during the face-off with DDP, DDP says that he says this. I don't think he actually said it, but Izzy said to him, don't get too close and kiss me, because, Dricus kisses his coach after he wins. So that's like a thing on the internet. And then DDP responds by saying, he claims that he said, well, I'm not one of your dogs or something like that. So there's actually, like, I genuinely think these guys actually really hate each other. Like, I don't think that this
I think
is
so
like
as
fake
well.
beef. Yeah.
I think so as well. And like you mentioned, backtrack a little bit. Happy to see Steve Erceg back. I am equally happy to see Kai Kara France back as well.
Yeah.
I really liked him. So I think this is a great matchup for them. It's gonna be super fun to watch.
That's like one of those matchups. It's almost like Jiri versus Pereira, where I don't really want to see either one of them lose. One of them.
Just two guys you like.
Yeah.
There's no reason to dislike either of them. It's kind of weird to put these two guys up obviously they're both Aussie, but having them fight in Perth, it's kind of like it's gonna split the crowd. Usually you like putting an Australian guy versus a foreigner, so that way the crowd is backing the Australian, right? So now it's kind of gonna split them, which is an interesting take from the UFC there.
Yeah, it is. So as we're talking about this, I just thought of this question. I want to pass it on to you. Who do you think this fight? Who do you think stands to win more from winning the fight, Izzy or DDP? Who stands more to gain?
It's tough because usually no, it's not that tough. DDP has more to gain. Izzy has more to lose, I think. Because if Izzy loses, I don't think it affects him. If Izzy wins, I don't think it affects his like rankings in the GOAT status of the middleweight division too much. Because it's DDP's first title defense. It's not like he's held on for the title for a while and Izzy's coming to dethrone this guy, so it doesn't move him up. But if he loses, the question does become, well, does it move him down at all? Probably not, but it kind of sets up DDP to be like, hey, look, I beat the guy who beat the champ. And then I beat the former champ as well, who's considered the GOAT of this division. And now I'm on a pedestal to kind of take this division by storm, right? So, yeah, I think it's simple in that sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. He can also start calling more shots if he beats Izzy. I will say, I do think Izzy needs to win because of what's happening with Alewx Pereira. Alewx Pereira is like basically, I think he's bordering on like passing, like in the eyes of fans, Pereira is like passing Izzy right now. And he was like always chasing Izzy, and he's almost like passing him now. Izzy's won more titles, but I think that like what Pereira is accomplishing is so extreme that like Izzy needs to win and then maybe move up to 205 and beat Pereira there to like really put a stamp on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think Pereira in the general GOAT debate, like pound for pound, I think that in most fans' eyes, Pereira has passed Izzy. And it's probably recency bias for the most part. I don't think Pereira surpassed Izzy in the middleweight division, but I think it's hard to argue that, hey, look, this guy has dominated 2 divisions. It's not just winning, it's how he's winning, you know? Like in that Jiri fight, the first fight versus Jiri felt a lot closer than this fight. Because in the first one, Jiri rocked him a little bit. You know, we had that like, oh, moment for Jiri.
Yeah.
Where in the second fight, we didn't even have that, you know?
I know.
It was like in the end of the first round, you kind of felt like it could be coming, and then he got knocked down, and then it was done. You know,
he never recovered from that. He never recovered from the knockdown. I thought when he had Pereira in the clinch at one point, where it was like, okay, maybe he'll take him down, and then that was it. That was literally his only moment of the fight.
I think that was at the end of the first round. I think that's what I'm referring to. And then I think
like
kind of got out of the clinch. Yeah, and then they got out of the clinch, squared up, and then popped.
Jiri like tried throwing a jab, but like with like a second left, and like I just think that he didn't need to do that. He could have just let the round go.
Yeah,
it was hard to watch. I'll be honest to see that, but
yeah.
Because I love Jiri Prochazka. I picked him to win. It's not because I picked him to win. I just genuinely like the guy, and I think that he's I think he got screwed because Pereira was using witchcraft. But no, in all seriousness, like, is Pereira making a case for GOAT status here, you think?
I think one more title defense in the light heavyweight division would not solidify it, but put him like really in that conversation. And I think if he makes that jump up to heavyweight, that's when like the conversation becomes legitimate. I don't think he's quite there yet, because when you talk about the GOATs, you have John Jones, you have GSP, and I think like part of being a GOAT isn't just what you've done, it's how long have you been doing it for, you know? And I think that's where Pereira's fault is. But if he goes up to heavyweight and wins the title, longevity is out of the question. He's just like, he will become the GOAT, undisputed in that sense, I think.
It's amazing that he's doing this all at like 37 years old too. I mean, he's pretty old for jumping into MMA this late in his career. And, you know, I don't think he'll ever pass John Jones in the UFC MMA GOAT conversation, but I do think he's like already potentially the combat sports GOAT, simply because he was a 2-division champion in kickboxing, and now he's a 2-division champion in MMA, which are completely different sports. I mean, like, I think about like Manny Pacquiao, who, you know, was one in like 8 divisions or something like that. He's been the champion in 8 divisions. And, you know, there are guys that were Olympic champions that became boxing champions as well, who are like all-time greats. But in combat sports, I mean, you're going to struggle to find as many people who have accomplished as much as Alewx Pereira. And I'm kind of just in awe of the guy. And I agree. I think if he goes up to heavyweight and like wins a title, I feel like even if it was just one, I feel like that 3-division champion would just be, I think that would solidify it for me, to be honest.
Well, you know who he'd have to beat John Jones.
That's the thing. That's it's a terrible matchup for him is the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Unless he's able to get in there pretty quickly after UFC 304 and fight the winner of Tom Aspinall and why am I blanking? Curtis Blades? No.
Curtis Blades,
yeah. Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades. So unless he comes in quick and fights the winner of that before John Jones and Stipe happens in 17 years from now. So
yeah, I think if Alewx beats Magomed Ankalaev, who's like kind of like the last contender that Alewx hasn't beaten in like the top 5 of light heavyweight.
Yeah.
I think if he does that, I think the UFC will say, okay, like you've basically beaten everybody. Let's do it. Let's see how great can you be, sort of thing. And I could see them doing it.
I wonder if that fight even happens. I know it's the next one to make, but Ankalaev, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he can fight in the US at the moment.
It's totally unclear what's going on with Ankalaev, because apparently he says he only wants to fight in like Abu Dhabi, but like, does that mean that you only can fight in Abu Dhabi, or you only want to? Like, what does that even mean? And so it's super confusing. But
And
then
why would
Ankalaev
Alex
just
take
fought.
that up?
He beat Johnny Walker in Vegas though, but I don't think he's come back ever since. So
Yeah, it's interesting. Like if I was Pereira, I would say I'm the champ. Why would I go ahead and go through a 10-hour time difference where I can come from Brazil to Miami and be in the same time zone or an hour apart, whatever it is, you know? And
because
it's a
Alex
lot
Pereira is a
easier on
different
me.
animal, that's why. Because Alex Pereira wouldn't care.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question is, will he care about that? We don't know from our perspectives, but you'd imagine he cares a little bit.
Well, he passed John Jones in the pound for pound rankings, and he's now number 2 behind Islam Makhachev. John Jones dropped down to number 3. Leon Edwards dropped down to number 4. But the more interesting conversation is if he deserves to be ahead of John Jones at this point, because Dana White's obviously been very adamant that nobody should be ahead of John Jones in the pound for pound rankings. But the difference is that compared to John Jones, Islam Makhachev and Alex Pereira are very active fighters. I mean, they have been fighting. Like, they fought 4 times in the last year and a half, whereas John Jones has fought 0 times in the past year. So I think that's the issue here. What do you think about the rankings?
Yeah, I think you can make an argument that he should be in first.
That Pereira should be in first.
Yeah, over Islam. I just think the fashion that Pereira has been taking these guys out in is just unbelievable. Obviously Islam has done the same, right? But you don't have, like, Pereira doesn't go to decision, and Pereira doesn't have a fight against, like Islam had with Dustin Poirier, where a lot of like where Poirier had that momentum, like it feels like every time Alex fights someone, like it's just like, I'm going to beat you and I'm not going to give you any glimpse of hope of beating me during this fight, and obviously we talked about how there was that one with Jiri, but that was like barely counts in a sense because he recovered from that pretty quick. So I think just like the fashion you win you can argue that he should be in first pound for pound at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is too is like, out of John Jones and Alex Pereira, I believe are the only 2 active fighters that are fighting right now that are 2 division champions. Like, where John Jones left as light heavyweight champion, became heavyweight champion. Alex Pereira became middleweight champion, lost, and then became light heavyweight champion. They're the 2. And then Islam hasn't done that yet. So Pereira and Islam have won the same amount of titles, and Pereira has won one more title than Islam. So it's like, there is definitely an argument there. And there's an argument too that like Islam has only beaten 2 lightweights in his championship fights.
Yeah.
He beat Oliveira and then he beat Poirier. He beat Volkanovski twice, who's a featherweight. So it's like, he hasn't even really cleaned out his division in terms of contenders necessarily.
No.
Whereas Pereira has at light heavyweight. I don't know. I think that there is an argument for him to be number 1 right now.
Yeah. And in terms of like where it puts John Jones, like, in my opinion, John Jones is still the all-time GOAT, right? Pound for pound. But I think when you look at it is a different conversation, right? And with the UFC pound for pound rankings, the live ones, there's recency involved in those, and John Jones just hasn't been active. And it's not his fault. He's been injured. We got to give him credit where it's due. But at the same time, you haven't fought in almost 2 years, I think, right? Maybe a little less.
He won in I think it's a year, because he won in November. No,
it's got to be more than a year.
Yeah, so it's like a year and a half, I think. Yeah, it's like
a year and a half, give or take.
Yeah.
But yeah, if John Jones comes back and wins a fight, I think he jumps back to the top of pound for pound rankings because he is the best pound for pound fighter, especially if he wins it like in a deserving fashion. But just considering you haven't fought in a year and a half, you just can't be that high up on the list when people keep winning while you're not fighting.
Totally agree with that.
No.
I want to get to, this is actually the craziest thing that happened over the weekend. I'm glad I just remembered this, and I wanted to just get this before we go here. Brian Ortega was supposed to fight Diego Lopez.
Dan Ige.
No,
Oh,
Diego
sorry.
Lopez.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they had a weight miss. He couldn't make weight because I guess he was bulking up to lightweight. So he was like 151 cutting weight and was like, guys, I can't cut 6 pounds in 3 hours. I just can't do it. So they last minute changed it to 155. Diego Lopez agreed. And then literally 3 hours before the fight, Brian Ortega has to pull out of the fight. And the UFC somehow mates Dan Ige versus Diego Lopez. That was an awesome moment. I like wasn't paying attention. I was like on the tennis court during the prelims. So like, and then like as I'm walking back to go watch the main card, I'm like, wait, what the hell is going on? Dan Ige is fighting. What is happening? And then it just sort of caught me off guard. One of the wilder moments. Super impressed with those guys though for accepting it and stepping up and making it happen, because that could have been a very bad night for that card, because it was kind of a disappointing card altogether.
It was already, It was
so
such a mess of a card already. But no, Dan Ige, a dog, dude. Hell yeah. Like, good for him. Stepped up, put up a good fight. It went to decision, right? In the end, I believe so.
Yeah, and he was actually piecing up Lopez in the third round too. He clearly lost the fight, but like finally started to like his punches started to get through, and he had if that fight goes 5 rounds, there's a chance that Ige wins that one.
Yeah, it was actually pretty funny. I was talking to Mike Owens, who's another reporter on Inside Fighting, and him and Dan Ige are actually really good friends. He traveled with Dan and his team to UFC 300 in Vegas, and spent the week with them and all that. And Mike's from the UK, so a lot of the time what he'll do is he'll go to bed, he'll wake up first thing in the morning, watch all the fights, not go on Twitter, doesn't know any of the results, sees everything live for him. He pulls up what he thought was the Diego Lopez Brian Ortega card, and then he sees his close buddy Dan Ige come out, and he's like, "What is going on here?"
That's hilarious.
So I thought that was a pretty funny story when he was telling me about it. But yeah, no, Dan Ige stepped up. A little disappointing for Diego Lopez because it doesn't do much for him. And obviously, like being on such a win streak, like you want these fights to count, but
might have done something for him financially.
Financially, I think it did a lot for him. I think speaking of financially for UFC 303, I'm pretty sure Alewx Pereira got a $303,000 bonus.
There was
for beating Jiri.
Yeah, Brian Ortega was sort of joking about it at the press conference because they did the $300K bonus for UFC 300. And then apparently what Dana White agreed to was doing two $50K performance or two $50K fight of the night bonuses. But because there weren't 2 fight of the nights, he decided to just give out the $303,000 to Alewx Pereira, which I thought was like, it was probably the right thing to do because he stepped in on short notice. He fought with broken toes to replace Conor McGregor, put a lot at risk, put his belt at risk. He deserved it. But Brian Ortega,
you got to give respect where it's due.
Yeah, and Ortega just made a statement, by the way. We can just sort of wrap it up here. He says, thankfully, he says, we were able to move to the weight to 155 at weigh-ins. I still felt off, but I was sure it would go away after I'm reading the wrong one. Sorry. He says, Thursday night, after 7 straight hours, I could not break 151. I would find out that I was battling a fever. I could not break into the final 5 pounds as my body started to shut down. Rather than risking huge health consequences, I asked for the fight to move to 155. He got down to 150. At weigh-ins, I still felt off, but I was sure it would go away. Later that night, I felt off, was suffering from cold sweats, no sleep. Finally, at 6 a.m. Saturday morning, I woke up and at 1 p.m. hoping to feel better. What? That makes no sense. Oh, I fell asleep at 6 a.m., woke up at 1 p.m. hoping to feel better, and then I could not keep water or food down. So he apparently got very sick. And I don't know if it's the weight cut like induced a fever on him or something, but I hope T-City comes back good because I was really looking forward to him fighting, and it just kind of sucks. So
I was also excited to watch him fight. But at the same time, like same with the Conor situation with a broken pinky toe. From a fan's perspective, you're disappointed and you're like, come on, pull through. Like this is what you do for a living. Like get out here and fight. But at the same time, these guys have proven a lot over the years, and if they're not 100% and they don't feel ready to fight, they shouldn't have to fight, in my opinion. So I respect him for pulling out, and I think we still got a great fight out of it. So it is what it is, but shit happens.
And now Diego Lopez and Dan Ige are probably going to be rewarded by fighting at the Sphere, because that's what they said they want as like their payment for doing it, is they want to fight on the Sphere card. So maybe they'll get that.
Nice. Yeah, I saw Max Holloway was saying the same thing just now. I think he said it a few times before, but I think he filmed a little something that emphasized he wanted to be on
There's
it.
some like mix up between him and Ilia Topuria right now about what's actually going on with that title fight. So hopefully we get some clarity there, because I think that's a fight everybody wants to see. But anyways, well, either way, it was a fun, eventful week. Yeah, thanks for joining me, bro.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
What's on the docket for insider betting? There's no UFC this weekend, but there is one big fight happening this weekend.
Yeah.
Nate versus Masvidal, obviously. I was trying to, if you want.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot to.
Yeah, no, it'll be a big fight. We'll probably talk mainly about that. No UFC. Maybe we'll see some PFL. I don't think there's any other big exciting fights on the Nate Diaz card. Maybe we'll talk about the Chris Avila one. That could be a fun one too. But tune in. Insider betting.
We'll do something fun. Maybe some parlays. Maybe we'll put some weird parlays together or something.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about some fights that we want to see happen as well.
And happy 4th of July to all the Americans out there. That's probably by the time you see it, might be 4th of July. So yeah.
Happy 4th of July. And if you're watching a little late, happy Canada Day weekend as well. It's July 1st.
I forgot about that. Canada Day. Yeah, I totally forgot.
Yeah, we're all celebrating.
How do you celebrate? Like, what is Canada Day compared to like 4th of July? Is it like the same thing kind of?
I think so. Like, you have the fireworks celebrations no matter where you go. I think most Canadians, like for us, it's common to go out to the lake for the weekend.
What are you guys celebrating though? Like, we're celebrating our independence from England. What do you guys celebrate? I don't actually know this.
I don't know, dude.